All right. Good evening. Good evening. Didn't you hear that? I'd like to welcome you to this evening's program. I'm sure that trout fishing is the furthest thing from your mind when the air temperature outside is 15 degrees. Unless, of course, you're an ice angler or one of these hardcore fly fishermen and likes to fish these limestone streams when nobody else does. My name's Carl Richardson. I'm with the Fish and Boat Commission. Pleased to say that I've been here 20 years, and this is what we get to do all day, is think about how we can get people interested in and involved in fishing. So what I'd like to do is just get started, and we'll start by introducing our Executive Director, John Arway.
Thanks, Carl, and welcome everyone to the Fish and Boat Commission's headquarters. If you haven't been here before, this is where we do our administrative business and other things. And speaking of that, we have a row of distinguished guests in the back row that I'd like to introduce. Our Board of Commissioners met today for the business we do here every quarter, and we have blue and tan shirts with the board. And maybe if you could just introduce yourself and to the group, starting with Warren, Commissioner Elliott.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I'm Warren Elliott. I'm from Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. I'm Commissioner Ed Misharka from Erie, Pennsylvania, District 1. I'm Tom Bachman from Denver, Pennsylvania, District 6. Dr. Rowell from District 2, Allegheny County.
Norm Gablett, Kingston, Pennsylvania, Luzerne County.
Steve Ketter from Harrisburg, and welcome everyone. I'm sure most of you are from the Harrisburg region, and I'm the Commissioner at Large representing the boating enthusiasts. Blaine Squires, District 8, Chester County.
I'm Bill Warbeck, District 5, Williamsport, Montgomery County.
And we have retired Commissioner Shetterly here. Tom just left the board and was replaced by Rocco Alley from the Southwest, so welcome, Tom. Well, it's really great you can join us this evening. I really enjoy cold water fishing too, which is the reason for the beard. But my cold water is usually when I can walk on it, so I'm real excited about the weather tonight because it's going to make some of our lakes safe that haven't been safe probably in almost 2 years. I only fished twice on the ice last year, so hopefully you're here to learn about basic trout fishing techniques. But before we get started, I've got a first-of-a-kind award that we created. When I became director, I worked with the Board of Commissioners to reaffirm our Resource First philosophy. We changed it from a logo or a slogan to a philosophy, and it's really about how our aquatic resources, including trout, are really the foundation for all our recreation programs. And the basic theory that we always operate by when we make any kind of decision is that we want to make sure the resource is protected before we make any decisions about recreation. So tonight we're here to talk about recreation, but in the spirit of the Resource First Award, I wanted to create a special Directors Award where I could look at the people that we work with across the Commonwealth and single out maybe a person every now and then that is truly deserving of helping the Fish and Boat Commission with our programs with Resource First. So with that, I'd like to announce this evening that the Fish and Boat Commission presents our first Resource First Award to Rod Cross. During a 7-year term as president of the Pennsylvania Falling Spring chapter of Trout Unlimited, Rod helped to secure $1 million in grant money to overhaul 4 half-mile sections of Falling Springs branch near Chambersburg in Franklin County. He has served as operations director for the Pennsylvania Rivers Conservation and Fly Fishing Youth Camp in Boiling Springs in Cumberland County for 16 years. And he and his wife Judy previously helped found a TU chapter in Western Pennsylvania. Rod's philosophy can almost be summed up in this quote by him: "Let's build partnerships and get this done." In 2012, Rod was acknowledged for his conservation service and volunteerism by becoming one of Field & Stream's selected finalists in his Heroes of Conservation National Recognition Program. The program serves to recognize individuals' efforts to protect fish and wildlife. As stated in the program overview by Field & Stream staff, a hero of conservation is someone who spends his or her own time working to create, improve, or restore fish and wildlife habitat. A hero is dedicated to the spirit of conservation volunteerism and stands out among other volunteers. Rod is a prime model for this quote and has devoted his life to partnering with and leading conservation groups for the improvement and protection of our natural resources here in Pennsylvania, both for public recreation as well as for the fish and aquatic life that live in our streams and rivers. Among his many achievements, Rod is most proud of his leadership in operating the Pennsylvania Rivers Conservation Fly Fishing Youth Camp. As a result of a youth's participation in the camp, and I see a lot of you out here in the audience, so you ought to check into it. It's a really fun time. Rod says the resource starts to make sense for these kids, and they get fired up about fishing and the health of the earth. No doubt, as the kids are getting fired up about fishing and conservation, which is why you're all here, Rod is the one building that fire and spirit for generations yet to follow on. It's this commitment to conservation ethics, youth education, habitat improvement, partnerships, and most of all to the resource that the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission presents the Director's Resource First Award to Rod as its inaugural recipient. So before I ask Rod and his wife Judy to step up to the podium and Commissioner President Ketter to join me up here at the podium, we'd like to show you a short film clip that Field and Stream filmed to recognize Rod as one of the national leaders in conservation.
Field and Stream presents the 2012 Heroes of Conservation. We selected 6 finalists, and Toyota will award $5,000 to each hero and a new 2012 Toyota Tundra to the winner in October. Hey, I'm Eddie Nickens, Editor-at-Large at Field and Stream magazine. The spring creeks and limestone streams of south central Pennsylvania have spawned legendary brown and wild rainbow trout and some of the most storied stream stretches in eastern America.
Following Spring is a world-renowned stream. The fact that it's one of the few natural wild rainbow trout reproducing streams brings people from all over. Many of the presidents through the years have come here to fish.
But years of neglect in some stretches of these famous waters had soiled and sullied and silted up some of the most famous creeks known as the birthplace of fly fishing in America.
We all know the cleaner the water, that's really an indicator of how well society's doing. So the cleaner we can get the water and the better habitat we provide, the more diverse and abundant the wildlife can be.
To bring back the fish and the fishing, Trout Unlimited volunteer extraordinaire Rod Cross embarked on a mission to literally reinvent wild trout waters. Anyone who fished these stretches of Pennsylvania's famous cold water creeks could tell they needed some help. They needed a hero of conservation. Rod, looks like a whole lot of activities going on right here.
Yeah, this is our project for the day. There's going to be a lot to do. The Fish and Boat Commission came into the fall and spring and did a fish study where they were concerned about the silt buildup. And they said, you know, if you guys could develop a project and get rid of that silt, you could have better spawning habitat.
Well, I see a huge pile of rocks across the road here, but they all got to get on the stream bank.
I see a brand new pickup truck sitting out there over here. Let's go do it.
All the professional stunt drawers do not fit. So I've got load after load of rocks. What's this going to do for the trout?
Trying to push the current toward the center of the stream so that it will purge any silt buildup.
And here's the bad stuff. Silt. It suffocates trout eggs, kills the young, slows down water velocities. By putting in these deflectors, by channelizing these streams, we got more water coming through. It's going to purge these streams of silt. Trout are going to love it, even more than they do now. Rod, we got a guy walking on water out here. What's going on?
He'll drill holes down through the log with that power drill and then Wupon rebar in to anchor it to the stream bed.
Right across the stream here, they've taken a big log. Trout love woody debris, and they've anchored it to the stream bank. This baby's going nowhere, but trout can live under this undercut bank. Love this woody debris. Smart move to bring back a trout stream.
Rod,
Ron, this is one fishy-looking piece of water here.
This is a good example of variations you can get in a limestone spring creek. Here we have a plunge pool. The water remains about 54 degrees, winter and summer. The pH balance is 7. It's perfectly balanced pH because of the limestone. So we've got pretty much ideal trout conditions here.
Let's give it a shot.
Okay. There's some very, very nice fish in here.
They gotta be tough to land.
Yeah, and they're tough to figure out. I've been living here for 16 years, and every time I come out, I learn.
How do you recreate one of the most pristine wild trout streams Mother Nature ever produced? You pull together massive community support. You marshal an army of volunteers willing to work for the wild. You have a little spark of a dream that needs vision and commitment to turn it into a fire of transformation. You need a man whose life was changed by a wild fish, by the colors of a rainbow. Someone who can look at muddy waters and imagine the wildness that yet can be. You start with a guy like Rod Cross, and you end up with a hero of conservation.
Unfortunately, Rod didn't bring back the gold from the Washington ceremony, but we have some Pennsylvania gold to give to Rod this evening. And I'd like to call off Rod, his wife Judy, and Commissioner Ketter for the presentation. This is one of a kind, Rod.
I believe it.
And on behalf of, thanks.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Commissioners. I got to tell you, this is an amazing surprise.
As
that was.
It's on PCN, so yeah.
Oh, okay. Don't be scared, this won't take long. There's a sign on a shed up in Yellow Creek in Bedford County, where I used to be able to see it anyway, and it said, if you're lucky enough to live by the water, you're lucky enough. And my wife Judy and I, we're fortunate to have our address on Falling Spring Road in Chambersburg. But when you live next to something that provides you with a quality of life that's really important to you, you have to accept some responsibility for that and get involved to keep it healthy and accessible. Being involved with the Falling Spring chapter of Trout Unlimited has given me that opportunity to get involved. Now, I got to say, it's very difficult to live up to the reputation, or should I say legend, of the Falling Spring whenever, I always hear, oh, I used to come here and fish all the time, and the rising fish, it looked like raindrops. And, it's hard to live up to that because things do change, and it's harder to keep something like that going. And we're all fishermen. I don't know how true some of it is, actually. But we try. And what has been accomplished and maintained on the Falling Spring is because of the extraordinary landowners that we have and the forward-thinking local governments along the stream. John got a chance to, when he was in the video, to meet Becky and Carl Hellman. Exceptional landowners, and that's what we experienced down there, and that's the way it should be, to be able to fish through public and private land. These relationships, along with the partnership with the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission, are what makes that possible to still fish over wild rainbow and brown trout on public and private land and be welcome there. Do we have problems and challenges? Yes, we do. Development, agricultural runoff, nutrient runoff, trying to obtain easements. Whenever a home goes up for sale, we get kind of nervous, So what we do, we write a letter from the chapter introducing ourselves to the new owner as a group and saying, talk to your neighbors and find out what we're like as a group of people and what we can, we help protect your property. We respect it like it's our own, and that's the key, mutual respect. Will we continue to work at keeping the Falling Spring a world-class fishery? Absolutely. So, I want to thank John and the commissioners. Thank you very much for this Resource First Award. I'm very proud and very honored to be the first recipient. Now your problem going forward is going to be picking the next recipient of the award out of the legion of great conservationists that you're lucky enough to have in Pennsylvania. So, you know, the question is, am I lucky enough? Yes, I am. And why not? I'm a Pennsylvania angler. Thank you. John, can I add, I did my tutelage, by the way, under Commissioner Shetterly when we formed the Chestnut Ridge chapter back here. That was a lot of fun, Tom. Thanks.
Hopefully you forgot all your bad habits. On with the show, Carl.
All right. Okay, so let's talk spring trout fishing. And the person that we've selected to give you that perspective is also the leader of the cold water unit within the Fish and Boat Commission, Tom Green. The cold water unit's responsible for the big picture management of our cold water resources in PA. That includes wild as well as stock trout. So Tom brings a unique perspective in that he's a very good angler, although he probably won't admit that. In fact, some of his colleagues refer to him as amazing. He's also a very good biologist, and I think a lot of what we have in place in terms of management in PA, we owe a lot to Tom and the staff within the Division of Fish Management. So, I won't waste any more of your time. I'm going to turn it over to Tom Green for your spring training.
Thanks, Carl. Tonight I'd like to provide you with a brief overview of the 2013 trout angling opportunities we have in Pennsylvania. I'd like to then get into providing you some information on how to prepare for your fishing trip, give you some information on fishing tackle, and then finally wrap up where to fish, or in other words, how to read water. Now, I'm one that doesn't stand on much formality, so if I get going and you have some questions, please ask them. You don't need to wait to the end for me. With respect to our trout angling opportunities in 2013, we'll stock adult hatchery trout in 1,077 stream sections, covering 4,673 miles of stream throughout the state, and in 124 lakes, covering some 7,100 acres of water. In addition to our hatchery trout, based on our recent examinations, we currently have wild trout residing in over 3,600 stream sections, covering over 12,400 miles of stream in the state. These populations range from sparse populations to very dense Class A wild trout populations. Trout stocking is a big part of our trout angling program in Pennsylvania. It's big business in PA. Breakdown of our 2013 adult trout stocking program by species. 16% of the adult trout we stock will be brook trout, 26% will be brown trout, and about 58% will be rainbow trout, for a total of 3,189,000 adult trout in lakes and streams of Pennsylvania in 2013. We have 5 waters that will be adding to the trout stocking program in 2013. First of these is Buell Lake. Buell Lake is a small 7-acre lake located near Sharon, Pennsylvania, and Mercer County. The next 4 lakes are waters that will return to the stocking program after a period of drawdown for maintenance and repairs to the dam. First of these is Dutch Fork Lake, 91-acre lake in Washington County. Leeser Lake, 117-acre lake in Lehigh County. Lock Ash Reservoir, it's a 5.5-acre small lake in Montgomery County. And Possum Lake, 59-acre lake in nearby Cumberland County. One of the new things that staff's been working on and has developed for the 2013 season is a list of Pennsylvania's best fishing waters. See, these lists are divided by a number of different species. You'll notice there's two sections on trout, stock trout section and a wild trout section. In terms of our best fishing waters, our stock trout waters, we have 21 different streams listed and 8 lakes. In terms of our wild trout waters, 16 of our best wild trout streams are listed as the best trout fishing water in Pennsylvania. And these lists are available at our information desks, so we have a number of these available. We encourage you to pick one of these up and try some of these waters during 2013. Next, I'd like to get into how to prepare for your fishing trip. And I guess one of the best tips I could possibly give you is don't wait to the last minute to look over your fishing gear the night before trout season. You want to make sure that you're looking over your gear several weeks ahead of time. In fact, right now is a good time to start looking over your gear. An equipment checklist, and this isn't all encompassing, but just some of the things you want to take along on your fishing trip. A good pair of waders or boots if you're going to fish, especially in a stream. A vest, a pack, or a bag to carry your gear. A creel or a cooler, especially if you're going to harvest some fish. A landing net to help you harvest those fish. And you'll notice I have rods and reels. It's a good idea to carry a spare. You never know when you're going to break down. It happens time after time. And you want to remember to check or replace your line from season to season. Every year I re-spool my spinning reels with fresh monofilament line. Of course, you want to take along your tackle of choice, whether it be bait, flies, or lures. Bring along a pair of clippers to cut that excess line. It's always a good idea to pack along a knife. And if you're 16 years of age or older, you want to certainly remember to take along your fishing license and trout salmon permit. Now, these must be displayed in an outer garment, a hat, a vest, something along those lines. And something new for 2013, we now offer multi-year fishing licenses. So you can either buy your annual license, a 3-year license, or a 5-year license. And there's some savings involved if you buy a 3-year license or a 5-year license. You want to make sure that you dress properly for the occasion. Wear warm clothes and dress in layers during the spring. I like to wear wool socks or heavy socks under my boots and waders. Protects your feet, keeps your feet warm, and also keeps you from getting blisters. You're going to do quite a bit of walking. You want to wear a hat? Most anglers wear a hat. It's a good place to affix your license to. And on cold mornings, you may want to wear gloves or bring along one of these. Hand warmers. Very convenient. Pass this around. You can stick them in your wader pocket and keep your hands warm. And you want to make sure you bring along your rain gear. A number of good fishing trips have been ruined by a quick shower. And then, of course, pack some snacks, lunch, something to drink when you take a break from fishing. Next, I'd like to get into talking about some fishing tackle. I'd like to initially begin by gearing up for the use of bait or lures. First thing you want to consider is purchasing a rod. For trout angling, generally a good spinning rod or spin cast rod, 6 to 7 foot in length. Length and medium action works very, very well for trout angling. And I have a 7-foot spinning rod, length and medium action set up here on the desk. You come to a break, you come take a look at that. The next thing you want to make sure that you spool your reel with good 4 to 8 pound test monofilament line for trout angling. A number of different brands in the market, they're all good. And the other thing you want to make sure that you do when you're fishing, you want to tie a leader onto your line. I like to attach, I fish minnows a lot. I typically use a minnow rig. It involves a swivel, piece of leader material, some split shot, and then a treble hook. But a leader typically is lighter in line than the line that's attached to your reel. One of the reasons why you're using lighter line is it's harder for the trout to see the lighter line. It's going to increase your hookups with the fish. Some of the terminal tackle for bait, you want to have a good supply of hooks. Generally hooks ranging from size 10 to 14 work well for trout. You want to make sure that you have a number of good amount of weight or split shot. Take that along with you. One of the biggest mistakes that I see folks make early in the season, they don't use enough weight, they're not getting down to the level of the fish, and that's very important. And then also, I'm a firm believer in using swivels from your line to your leader. Prevent line twists, puts a little bit of action on your lure or your spinner. Good idea to invest in some good ball bearing swivels. Some popular trout fishing baits include the old standby earthworms or night crawlers, salmon eggs, whole kernel corn. Make sure you use whole kernel, not cream style. Cream style doesn't work very well. Needleworms, waxworms are good baits, and then of course the old standby minnows. Now if you're industrious, you can collect your own minnows or your own worms, but any of these items can be bought at a tackle shop. Power bait and other paste baits are very effective baits, especially for stock trout. They come in a variety of colors, variety of shapes, variety of forms. The jar on the left, the paste on the left, has about the consistency of Play-Doh. You just mold this around the hook in a round fashion or a teardrop fashion, works very, very well. One of the things you want to remember with power bait, it floats. So you're going to want to make sure that you're using enough sinkers and enough weight to get down on the bottom. Yes, sir?
Which power bait would you think is the best?
What do I think is the best? There's a number of good ones. I like chartreuse myself. Some popular lures. A number of brands out there, rooster tail lures, net spinners, rapalas or stick baits, panther martins, and castmaster spoons are all very effective artificial lures. And I have some examples of these that I'll pass around to you. Now switching gears, I'd like to talk a little bit about the gear setup for flies. Generally speaking, a good serviceable rod's an 8 to 9 foot fly rod. Number of good brands on the market. Same with a reel, variety of good choices on the market. One of the things you've got to remember when you're buying a fly rod and a reel is you're going to want to match your fly line with the recommended weight of the line that's listed on your rod. That's very important, so you're fishing with a balanced setup. You cast your rod your line properly. It's very important to get your fly line matched with your rod. Leaders, typically use a tapered leader. These can be bought in the stores, or you can tie your own. You'll notice leaders are typically listed by tippets, 3X, 4X. That basically has to do with the strength of that leader. 3X leader is a heavier, stronger leader than a 4X leader. 3X leader may be 4-pound test, 4X leader may be 3-pound test, etc. And you want to make sure that you use split shot and weight if you're going to fish a fly that's under the surface. And I have a fly rod set up here too, that when you get a chance at the break, you can take a look at this. Variety of different types of conditions. Dry flies, nymphs, wet flies, streamers. First of these are dry flies. Probably the most popular of the fly family for anglers to fish with. And as the name implies, dry flies are fished on the surface of the water. They float. They're designed to float. They represent those insects that are on top of the water that trout ride take when they're feeding. So dry flies are fished on the surface of the water. And I have some examples of dry flies. Next we have nymphs and wet flies. Nymphs and wet flies are fished under the surface. Typically nymphs may be weighted, or you want to affix weight to a nymph on your leader. Nymphs are normally fished near the bottom of the stream. Wet flies are fished at various levels in the water column. Wet flies can be used to represent an emerging insect. And I have examples of both of these. And finally, streamers. Streamers are tied to represent a minnow, a sculpin, a black-nosed dace, a creek jump, shiner. Streamers again are fished near the bottom of the stream. Typically, you're going to want to have some weight on your leader when you're fishing the streamer, depending upon the conditions. And I also have some examples of streamers. Next, I'd like to speak about where to fish for trout, or reading water, so to speak. A number of anglers prefer to fish very small streams like those on the left. Some anglers like to fish intermediate-sized streams, and some anglers prefer to fish very, very large streams in Pennsylvania, like Big Pine Creek in Lycoming County, photograph on the right. Some of the places to fish in streams include larger pools in the stream. Obvious choice. Hatchery trout have a tendency to school, end up in large numbers in larger pools. One of the drawbacks is that these areas can be crowded with anglers. Some of the places to fish in a pool, one of the places to consider is where the moving water enters the pool, where the riffle enters the pool, where the water deepens out from the riffle. Eddies on the side of the pool, especially early in the season, can be very good areas to look for trout. And the old standby under bridges and along bridge piers. Normally there's a pool associated with a bridge, and bridges do provide good overhead cover. And finally, the tail of the pool, or where water exits a pool. It's a good place to look for trout. Some examples. This is an example where water enters the pool. This particular area in through here, this glide or this seam entering where it starts to enter the pool would be a good place to look for the fish, or possibly even along the bank. Another popular spot are eddies on the edge of the pool, especially in higher, colder flows in the spring. These anglers both appear to be fishing in an area that would be considered to be an eddy. Another good spot is the tail of the pool. Sometimes this is overlooked by anglers, but this particular angler is actually catching a trout out of the deeper channel in the tail of the pool. And something that's a little bit hidden in this slide, but one good place to look for, especially early in the season, are splits. If you notice here, there's an island here. There's a back channel of this stream, and there's a channel going down through here on this side. These are great areas to look for hatchery trout, especially early in the spring when the water's up. Anglers will quite often walk right by these split channels and concentrate on the pool, but these split channels sometimes can really pay off. Under bridges and along bridge piers can quite often be a very good bet. This youngster caught a very large brook trout in close proximity to this bridge. Some areas that are often overlooked by anglers include faster moving water with good to moderate depth. Talking about something that may be waist deep or deeper. Early in the season, anglers have a tendency to all run to the pools. But these other types of areas can really pay off for you, especially under crowded conditions when you're looking for a place to fish. Fallen logs or root logs along stream banks provide very good overhead cover. Very good places to find trout in the spring. Undercut stream banks, another good place to look for fish. And finally, pocket areas and faster moving water, very good areas to look for fish. In this particular example, you have a fallen log and you have a root wad. Trout may decide to lie along that log, under the log, and quite often behind the log and in between there and the bank. Now these can be tough places to fish, but if you learn how to fish these, concentrate on them, I'll guarantee you're going to catch some trout. These are very, very good places to look for to fish. In this particular example, another log structure, you may find fish in the plunge pool. You may also find them up along the bank. Good place to concentrate on early in the spring. Another place you may look for is a fallen log up here, normally associated with a little pool, and then along this root wad, where there's a little bit deeper water. These types of areas are the types of areas you want to look for when you're fishing for trout. Next are pockets and faster moving water. These can be particularly good areas to fish, especially later in the spring when the water starts to warm a little bit and the trout get a little more active. What you're going to want to look for are breaks in the current, where there's some large boulders creating a bit of a pool, or possibly where there's some debris in the stream, a log, root wad, something along those lines. Any place where there's a break and some cover. And finally, a large pool. This particular pool I'm quite familiar with. You'll notice these two anglers at the top of the stream. They're fishing where the water is moving from a shallow depth into a deeper depth at the head of this pool. And this particular pool is probably about 8 foot deep in the spring. Another good place to look for fish is in this lower pool. These eddies on the edge of this moving water. Very good place to look for stock trout early in the spring. And then also the base of the riffle where it starts to deepen out. Another good spot for trout. Next, I'd like to touch on stock trout lakes. As I mentioned earlier, in 2013, we plan to stock 124 lakes, over 7,100 acres of water. Many anglers prefer to fish our stock trout lakes from a boat. Great way to fish on a stock trout lake. A little bit off the shore, where there's some deeper water. Based on our surveys we've conducted today, our angler surveys, about 30% of our anglers that fish stock trout lakes fish from a boat. That means about 70% of our anglers fish from the shore. Some good places to look for where to fish in lakes would be drop-offs, where the water depth increases, and the inlets of streams, where you have some moving water going in, moving into the standing water. And normally the inlets and streams, you're also going to be finding a drop-off area there. Another place to look for would be a place where structures provided, such as riprap along a dam breast, or a log is fallen into the lake. Some helpful hints. One that I can give you is make sure that you use enough weight to get down to the fish, especially early in the spring before it flows. One of the big mistakes, like I mentioned earlier, that I see anglers make from constantly in the spring is they don't use enough weight to get down to the fish. Yeah, you might not get hung up if you don't use that weight, but you aren't going to catch many trout. You want to make sure that you use plenty of weight to get down to the level of fish. Fish slow and deliberately during the spring. As an example, typically I'll start the season with my minnow rig fishing no less than 7 BBs. So you don't have to be afraid to use weight. When you catch one fish, spend some time there before moving. Stock trout like to school, so if there's one fish there, good chance there's another one there. Be observant. Watch the methods that other successful anglers use. You can pick up a lot of good tips, a lot of good hints, just from watching what other people are doing. And finally, if all else fails, ask successful anglers for some advice. Some anglers won't give you the time of day, but you'd be surprised how many guys are very, very friendly and are willing to help you out. And this can really pay off and turn a poor day into a very good day in a hurry. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. No question, please. Yes, sir.
What's the average size of the 3 million stock fish?
Sorry, 11 inches. 11 inches is our average size. We also stock some trophy size, some brood fish. We stock about 8,500 trophy golden rainbows. They're maybe 16 to 20 inches every year. And we also stock about 20,000 brood trout. They typically range in that 16 to 20 inch range every year. Yes, sir.
When you fish in late spring, early summer, do you use weights to get down to the cooler water too?
What, you're talking about like the summertime? You can, depending on what you're fishing like. Certainly if you're fishing bait, you're going to want to get down. That's for sure, certainly.
Even with wet flies?
I normally don't use weight on my wet flies. I use a sink tip line. That kind of serves the same purpose. Oh, I'm sorry.
Do you have any more hints about fishing from a stock lake, fishing from the bank with spinning gear?
With spinning gear in a lake, I have to be frank with you, I fish primarily in streams, but based on my experience, some of the things that I do look for will be that inlet, that stream entering the lake, And then I've noticed a lot of anglers have a tendency to fish near a dam breast, where you do have that structure.
How do you balance spending your whole day, with snags, losing your lures and your hooks, and getting down there where the fish are?
Well, it's kind of a matter of experience. I mean, you'll get a quick feel for that once you start fishing in those types of areas, what you can get away with, what you can't get away with. Sometimes, it's one of those things like in life. Sometimes you have to take a few risks to get a few rewards, and this is one of those cases.
How many split shots would you put on a line?
How many would I put on a line? I guess it depends on what I'm fishing. Like I said, when I fish my normal minnow rig, I put at least 7. When I'm fishing a spinner, I may go a little bit lighter than that because the spinner has some weight associated with it.
Yes, you say you have stock trout and you have native trout.
Yes, sir.
Now, do they breed? And also, does trout run like salmon as far as when they want to spawn or whatever?
Trout will move into tributary streams and spawns in some instances, but some trout will also will live their entire life in a very close proximity to where you'll find them. So it's not the best answer I can provide to you, but some trout, it depends on the situation. Like if you're dealing with a limestone stream, a trout really never has to move. He can spend its entire life within a half-mile stretch of stream. On a freestone stream where it gets a little bit warmer, a trout may have to move to get to colder water, but they will ascend tributary streams and spawn from time to time, yes.
Tornadoes, is it true that you should only throw 1 or 2 casts before moving on to the next spot?
You're fishing on a wild trout stream, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
It depends. Lots of folks do take that theory, that you make a couple casts in the pool and move on. On a smaller stream, that can be an effective way to fish, and that can be an effective way to cover a lot of water in a hurry.
Okay. We don't have any more questions? Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, sir.
We'll have plenty of time after our last speaker for you to mill around and try to pick Tom's brain. In addition, we want to point out, if you haven't seen them already, we've got a number of organizations here with booths out in the lobby. You'll notice an occurring theme with some of them, or with several of them. We have 3 organizations here that have sponsored youth-related trout and cold water conservation camps. So we'll hope that those of you that have kids with you or at home that are in that age group, you'll take a good look at what they have to offer. I also want to point out the wealth of publications and resources that we have. Got a lot of stuff that we've done for kids. This is from our Play newsletter, and I'll talk about it in a minute. All about trout. We've also got our Fish ID guide that's available here in this building, as well as several tables out in the lobby. We've also reprinted some articles out of our flagship magazine, the Pennsylvania Angler and Boater. I grabbed this one here in particular to respond to the lake fishing article. And it's essentially an article about fishing from the bank for a lake. And you'll notice some of Mike Leach, well-known outdoor writer from the Northwest, talks about using many of those spoons that Tom showed earlier. So please take advantage of those resources that we have. Also, to try to answer that question about the bank fishing, I come from a long line of lake fishermen. My dad loved nothing more than to go out and fish lakes, particularly as he got older. And he liked to fish 1 rod with bait, depending on what was going on. 1 rod on the bottom with bait, quite often using power bait with a split shot weight, or even a split braid. Then the other rod he fished with, and he had multiple rods, but he only fished with 2 at the same time. He would use spinners. He also was a big fan. He learned that the fish in the lake that he frequented loved to eat the small aquatic insects. And so he would use a spinning rod with an item called a casting bubble. That is a clear piece of plastic, I probably should have brought some, that you can fill with water to give you some weight. And the weight in that casting bubble allows you to cast a fly as small as a size 18. And just basically slow cast out as far as you can, and then just slowly retrieve it back. You've got about that much distance between the fly and the float. So he killed the fish at Twin Lakes, a lake back home. Everybody was always after his flies as well as trying to figure out what he was doing with those casting bubbles. But that bait, you've got your bait in one spot, so you could also, using the spinning gear, casting flies, casting spinners, catch those fish that are out cruising the lake, because you'll see that oftentimes, particularly in the smaller lakes. Okay, so moving on. I want to talk about, I'm actually really excited to talk about this. It's a new program we're starting this year, and it's called the Mentored Youth Trout Day. And I'm really happy to see folks under the age of 16 in the room, and hopefully you'll learn a few things about trout fishing from Tom and can pick some stuff up afterwards. Hopefully my presentation convinces the adults in your life to take you fishing more. Let's see a show of hands from the kids who would like to fish more. How about the adults that like to fish more? Yeah. Yeah, we're all kind of in that boat. So what I want to do is kind of talk a little bit about the Mentored Youth Trout Day and the reasoning behind it. And kind of the theme behind this program is called essentially the recipe for an angler. So what's the recipe? How do you make an angler? Well, look around the room. For those of us wearing the blue shirts, we've spent a lifetime doing this. I'll bet if you added up all the days that that's mind-boggling to think of all the days many of the people in this room have fished just among the commission staff. So it doesn't happen overnight. It takes many years. And everyone that I know that fishes for trout is constantly learning. As Tom pointed out, there's a lot of things that aren't cut and dried. You've got to learn them as they go along. So one fishing trip isn't going to make someone turn into an angler. You'll notice there in the cooking instructions, start with a low simmer. Sometimes that works best. Sometimes, depending on the person or the kid, they want to jump in with both feet. Basically allow that person to be your guide. Now, we've got the list of ingredients over there on the left. Each one of those is important. That is, they're necessary, but each one by itself really isn't enough. For example, if a kid knows how to tie a knot but doesn't have the equipment or doesn't have somebody to go fishing with, they're probably not going to fish. And there's a lot of science that's gone on to learn a little bit more about why people fish, how they get into the sport. And this chart shows the different phases and stages that they go through. This model is true of just about anything: golf, skiing, tennis. And as people move through those stages, just about everybody goes through those stages. They go through them at different paces and different times. Sometimes, for example, they get stuck, or they don't move on. Somebody tries it, they don't like it. They never want to do it again. Or they go out in that apprentice, where you've got, in the case of a kid, your parents taking you out, or other adults. They're your transportation, they're the ones helping you get to that spot, plan that trip. Finally, at some point in someone's life, they become hooked. That is, it's going to take an awful lot for them to not fish. So we call those folks adopted. How many in the room here are in that adoption stage? How many of you are hooked, and how many are you kind of in this trial phase? Maybe just giving it a test, don't fish all that often, but still like it. There's an awful lot of people now that are what we call dabblers. They may go fishing one weekend, the next weekend they may take the family out for a bike ride. They may go birding, they may go paddling. So we're seeing the faces of our anglers changing a great deal. Something else that we're seeing that's an unfortunate outcome of all the options we have is we've got folks dropping out. About a quarter of our anglers buy a license every 5 years for a 5-year period. So let that sink in. About 25, about a quarter of our population of anglers, buy a license every year for a 5-year period. The rest will move in and out. I want to talk a little bit about the gender gap. And if you doubt about whether there is a gap in the genders with fishing, look around the room, we've got a lot of different ages as well as male and female represented. Males represent 85% of the licenses that we sell in Pennsylvania, but women comprise more than half of the population. So what's going on? And at younger ages, girls fish about as much as boys, especially under the age of 12. But when they get to be 13 and older, girls start to drop out at a much faster rate than boys. A lot happens in that time frame. This is a picture of my daughter with my dad at Twin Lakes in Portage, and that's when she liked to fish. That's when all she could talk about was going fishing with Pappy. Well, when she turned 14, the last thing she wanted to do was to go fishing with Pappy or me or anyone else for that matter. Well, she's 21 now and started to hang out with a bunch of guys who like to fish. Guess what? She's now asking questions, wants to borrow gear. I bought her a license last year for the first time in 4 or 5 years. So while girls may drop out, there's a chance of bringing them back. Adults drop out too, and we've seen that a great deal. And we've talked about our decreasing or stable license sales. We're seeing a lot of adults dropping out for a variety of reasons. Getting older, lots to do in terms of family or work, but it's a double whammy when they leave because they very often take their kids or the other children that might be in their life. So again, it's a double whammy. We lose the adult, and because of the importance of that adult in producing the next generation of anglers, we also lose them as well. We talked about the whole point of my presentation is talking a little about that mentored trout or youth trout program. So the word mentor is thrown around an awful lot, but what does it really mean? Well, if you look in Wiki or on Merriam-Webster online, which is the way you look up words these days, it talks about a mentor being a trusted guide and teacher, a companion, somebody that isn't necessarily only a teacher. The apprentice are the folks that they bring under their wing to try and teach. I'm sure many of us can speak to, right off the top of your head, 1 or 2 people who played that key role in your life growing up as an angler or a hunter or any other sport. Mentors or instructors help teach skills, but we say mentors help to create anglers and boaters. That is, a kid could go to a program on a Saturday morning and learn how to cast, learn how to tie a knot, but if they go home and there's no one there in their family that fishes, no one close to the family that fishes, they're probably not going to use those skills again until they go to that same program next year. Mentors offer long-term and repeated contacts, and that's really important. Those of us in the room that fish, those of us that have chosen this path are great examples. That didn't happen overnight. 1 or 2 key experiences certainly helped, but it occurs over a long period of time. They also provide an opportunity to talk about fishing. And for many of us, that's the closest we get these days. Talking about fishing, thinking about fishing, looking at the catalog, daydreaming. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes going down in the basement and just looking at the stuff is enough. Although that does wear thin about the middle of February. So the mentors are important because when we ask kids in Pennsylvania as well as nationally, who do you want to go fishing with? Particularly kids that are younger than the age of 12, they want to fish with their family. When you ask them, who do you want to teach you how to fish? They say, we want to learn from our family. Dad's at the top of the list, followed by Grandpa, and Mom's down a little bit further in the list. But Mom's role is really important. We've learned that in families where Mom fishes, the kids are much more likely to fish as adults. So that's why we're delighted when we look out and see such a diverse audience of people in this room. The idea is that kids are going to fish more if their parents fish. But more importantly, their parents are going to fish more National surveys have been done where they said to adults, and we've done them here in PA, what's the one thing that would get you to go fishing more? And they say, for those that have kids in the household, if a kid asked me to fish. So kids, if you want to go fish more, ask the adults in your life to take you fishing more. Because they can't turn down. I see a lot of kids looking and nods from parents. It's with that in mind that we created this Mentored Youth Trout Day. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with mentored hunting opportunities that have existed in Pennsylvania for several years. It's a pilot program for the Fish and Boat Commission this year, and we're doing it as a pilot to try to work out some of the logistics, because again, it is something new. In addition, we want to try to find out whether there's interest and support for such an idea. This year, we've identified through an executive order, an order signed by our executive director, 12 waters within the 18-county area that has a March opening day. The date that we've selected is March 23rd, 2013. That's essentially the Saturday before the traditional opening day in those regions. Starts at 8 a.m. and runs through 7:30 p.m. We're asking that the youth register in order to participate, and they also are accompanied by a licensed adult. And we're set the creel limit at 2 fish per person per day. This is the area that's included in this March opening day, which is kind of I don't know, how long have we had the March opening day?
About 5, 6 years.
5 or 6 years. So it's been very well received in the southeastern part of the state, because if you know anything about Pennsylvania geography, a day in Lancaster County in March can be night and day different from a day in, let's say, Cambria County or Westmoreland County, or even up in the northern tier counties. Even in the middle of April, we can encounter snow in those parts of the state. These are the 12 waters that have been selected, and that information is also available on our website. These waters were selected because of their size, their location. Lakes were selected, smaller lakes were selected, or smaller impoundments were selected, because we believe that that's going to provide a better opportunity for success. That is, the fish are concentrated in a smaller area. We've also picked a lot of parks and a lot of facilities, locations that offer plenty of parking and ideal and easy access. Here's a map showing where those waters are located. Now you notice there's some places where we don't have waters selected in this pilot program. That's probably because we didn't have any trout stock lakes, or if we did, they were larger than 100 acres or so. The question that many have asked, are we going to put more fish in? Yes, we are. Those calculations are still being worked out, because that stocking schedule is a dynamic work in progress, but we will be stocking additional fish in those 12 waters. In addition, they'll be stocked the week before the 23rd, so that there'll be plenty of fish left over when opening day rolls around for everyone else on the 31st, or on the 30th. We've made registration. We don't want to make it a cumbersome thing. We're making it available on our website. So if you don't have access to a computer at home, you can register here. We have several computers set up. You can also, we're going to do paper on-site registrations. So for example, you go to one of the parks that's hosting one of these, that's serving as one of these waters, the park office will, in all likelihood, have these forms available for you up until and including the day of the event. Now, a lot of folks have asked us, why do we register? Well, one of the biggest reasons we wanted to register was to gauge interest. If we didn't, we really had no way of knowing what the level of interest is. So if we get rained out and the weather's horrible, we still have an idea as to how many people are interested in it. And currently, we just announced it shortly after the holidays, and we're well over 500 youth that have been registered to participate. The other thing it does is it gives us an opportunity to connect with the young anglers, as well as their mentors, because the mentors are asked to provide their information as well. One of the things that the youth get an opportunity to receive is a quarterly newsletter. It's called the Pennsylvania League of Angling Youth, or PLAY. And every issue is filled with stuff on fish, fishing, critters, boats, boating, water safety, The most recent issue, I believe, is out there, and it's on habitat improvement. So you can learn a little bit more about some of the work that Rod Cross and others have done in stream habitat improvement. One of the things that's going to be a very important part in determining where we go next with this pilot is feedback and support from anglers. To date, I've received one email that was a definite negative, didn't like it, and the reason they didn't was because it wasn't in their part of the state yet. So we're seeing an awful lot of support and interest, even from those folks that live outside that 18-county area. We're also going to look at the registration data. We'll be doing angler counts at those waters to determine how many people are taking advantage of the opportunity. We're also looking at feedback from our own staff, particularly the law enforcement officers that will be on the water on those days. Plus, we have plans to do a follow-up survey to those that agree to do so using the online registration form. So, just to kind of summarize, make sure you put this in your calendar. March 23rd. Did I say 2013? Yes. At each location, we will have on-site registration. So if you decide at the last minute to take advantage of the opportunity because the weather's great, don't worry about it. We should have someone on location with forms to accommodate you. In addition, we've had such an overwhelming support from the parks where we're having these events that they will have park staff available to assist any beginners or novices that may be experiencing some problems. We also have a large number of cooperative nurseries that have stepped forward. These cooperative nurseries take fish from the Fish and Boat Commission that are young fingerlings, and then we'll grow them out to full-size adults and stock them in waters within their community. We're also going to have clubs, sportsmen's clubs. We've got a club in Adams County that's, the press release had been emailed out. Within 15 minutes, I got 2 emails from this club in Adams County with folks stepping forward to try to offer to help. So we're seeing a great deal of support from folks outside the commission as well as other anglers who may not have a child interested. Plus, we expect in those places where we don't have any of these partners present that we'll have some commission staff available, likely wearing one of these blue or tan or navy blue shirt to try to provide some assistance. So how do you make the most of that day? Well, when we teach fishing and teach parents how to teach their kids how to fish, we talk about the 4 Ps. Plan, prepare, practice, and pressure. Planning is a really the experience for many people. In fact, my stepson would rather, he says more time researching stuff on the computer and planning the trip than he actually does when we go fish. But as long as he plays a role in planning the trip, I'm okay with it. Make sure you put the date on the calendar. When the Game Commission first offered these youth hunts and the mentored hunts, I heard from a lot of friends that said, that gives me a day I can put on the calendar that I know that we are going to get out and hunt, or in this case, fish together. So I'd encourage you, if you're going to participate, make sure you get it put on the calendar, because we all know how things can get pushed off the calendar if it's not written down. When we could talk about preparing, Tom mentioned getting your gear ready helps to save some frustration on the water, but it can also help to build that excitement. I remember sitting at the kitchen table with my dad taking apart the reels with a jar of Penn Blue grease, servicing the reels, taking apart the rods, putting new guides on them. So there's an awful lot of things that you can do between now and the beginning of the trout season to be getting ready. Practice. We see an awful lot of kids on the first day that the first time they cast a rod that year is that morning. And you'll notice on those places where Tom pointed out fish like to hide, those are great places to get hung up. So if you're not an accurate caster, it's going to be a very frustrating day. So we recommend highly that you get your youngster out, or even any of your adult friends that want to fish, and get them practice casting. You can buy practice plugs at most of the major tackle stores, or you can use an old-fashioned clothespin. Just cut it half. We also have I'll call it a recipe on our website for making a casting plug out of a dowel rod. Practicing knot tying, really important. How many of us are out there now need our reading glasses to do that knot tying? Sometimes the young eyes can tie our knots for us. So getting them at home practicing, using an old fly line in a screw eye can be a great way to hone those skills, so come opening day they're ready to go. You notice pressure, we've got ease the pressure. A lot of times we feel the pressure as adults to make sure the kids catch fish, because that's how we believe they might identify or define a successful day on the water. That isn't necessarily the case. I can think back of an awful lot of times when I had a great day fishing, and I'll bet we didn't catch a single fish, but it's one of those memories that sticks in my mind. Sitting on Bob's Creek in Bedford County, watching the snow come down, following the snowplow up over the mountain back to Portage. While it had nothing to do with fishing, it created a significant memory and obviously had some influence in why I'm here today. So, our motto is take me fishing. Whether it's the youngsters or the youth in your life, whether it's your neighbor who doesn't fish, we want you to get them out fishing. The Mentored Youth Day provides a great opportunity to get the youngsters out. We also have 2 days to get the adults out that you know. Those are our Fish for Free days. This year they'll be on Memorial Day, Monday, and on the 4th of July. And on those 2 dates, any adult over the age of 16 or 16 and older has the opportunity to fish without needing a fishing license. And all other rules and regulations apply. Before we move on to our next speaker, any questions? In the front of the room, we have several fact sheets on the Mentored Youth Trout Program. We've got frequently asked questions. That information is also on our website as well. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Just one. In registering for this, I've noticed you can put in multiple children, but when you get the confirmation back, it'll have 1 child per adult. Is that a limit, or can one adult take more than 1 child?
Yes, an adult can take more than 1 child. What we're recommending is 5 or less per adult.
That's all. Thank you. Great idea, by the way.
Great. We're glad to hear it. Glad to hear you think that way. Anyone else? Okay. Well, we're going to move on to our next speaker. And I want to introduce to you the next speaker is Rebecca Haller. Rebecca is representing the National Council of Trout Unlimited. Rebecca is the education coordinator for the Eastern Abandoned Mine program. And Rebecca is going to talk a little bit about Trout Unlimited and their programs to get youth more involved in trout fishing as well as cold water conservation. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rebecca.
So today I wanted to sort of connect the last 2 presentations you've heard about and talk about how to not only take your kid fishing and get them out on the water, but to make them a lifelong conservationist, and how you can use fishing and the fun of fishing to really inspire your kids. And I want to talk a little bit about our programs, but also how you can use these programs as sort of building blocks and ideas for future programs that you might want to do. And I'm going to talk a little bit about, I know some of you out there are maybe involved in a volunteer group that might be looking to do this in a classroom setting with a group of kids, or whether you're just looking to take your child or your grandchild fishing. So a little bit about Trout Unlimited. Trout Unlimited is a national conservation group, and we have the mission to conserve, protect, and restore North America's cold water fisheries and their watersheds. We have about 140,000 members throughout the country. They're organized into about 400 chapters. We also have field offices, such as mine. Those field offices are in places such as Alaska and California, all the way to Maine, and of course here in Pennsylvania. And each of those field offices works on a different unique topic and to protect and restore trout fisheries. So to do this, we have a sort of 4-tiered approach to our conservation strategy. And that is to protect the areas that are not impaired at all, to reconnect those areas to larger streams to allow fish movement, and to restore streams that have been impaired. And overarching all of these to really keep this momentum going, and to really keep conservation not just within our group, our small group of TU and this generation, but is to sustain the mission of TU. And that really is through education. That is getting the next generation interested in conservation so this idea can continue for years to come. So why do we care about education? Well, as I said, our office works with abandoned mine drainage. So our office works to clean up streams like this. So I'm going to use a lot of abandoned mine drainage as sort of my example, but any of this can be applied to the source of pollution that affects the stream nearest you. So our little fact sheet on AMD is that there are 5,500 miles of streams that are impaired by abandoned mine drainage. And it is a large source of pollution to PA's watersheds. But in general, public are not that interested in cleaning up AMD or anything really in regards to these streams. There's a general apathy. People look at this orange stream and say, it's been orange for 100 years. It will continue to be orange and there's nothing we can do about it. Well, there is something we can do about it. We can fix streams like this, but generally, people aren't really that interested in helping. And of course, there's a general lack of funding for AMD cleanup. Now, I would hazard to guess that if you looked at the stream nearest you that was impacted and maybe didn't support fish, and looked at whatever pollution source was causing that, you could make a fact sheet just like this about it. You could have the number of miles of impaired streams in Pennsylvania based on that, and probably it's one of the major sources of pollution in PA. And I would bet that the last two bullets would stay the same. That generally, the general public isn't that interested in cleaning up that stream necessarily, and there's a lack of funding to do it. Okay, so how do we tackle those two bottom bullets for any source of pollution? It comes down to education. While there's a lack of funding, it's important to spend some time and money on education to improve the public attitude towards these issues. So why do we want to do that? Well, this problem is larger than us. I've said 5,500 miles of impaired streams of AMD alone in Pennsylvania. This problem will not be cleaned up in my lifetime. But I need the next generation to be just as excited about cleaning up streams as I am, so that these streams will end up cleaned up. And this is true of any source of pollution. Let's think about it. Any of the sources are huge problems that generations to come will have to tackle. And there's new threats every day facing our streams. Whether it's from natural resource extraction or urbanization, our streams are in danger every day. And we need to have the youth remember what has happened and care about cleaning up streams and protecting them. So, of course, the quote comes up, those who do not remember their history are doomed to repeat it, and that is exactly what this is all about. So, let's talk about that education and what you want to do with that education. You can sit there and you can throw facts and figures at kids and tell them how to clean up a stream. But ultimately, if they do not care about a stream and if they are not passionate about that stream, they won't remember any of those facts and figures. So if you have not read the book Last Child in the Woods by Richard Laveau, I would encourage you to go get that book and read it. It is one of the best books I've read in a long time. And in the book, he proposes that the first step in educating kids about the outdoors and to get them into a conservation mindset is to make them passionate about the outdoors. And I put this picture up because this is an example of inspiring passion in children. These three girls came on a field trip with me. As you can see, their nails were done, their hair was done, and they were wearing strappy little shoes. They knew they were coming on a field trip where we were going to streams. When we arrived at the stream, which this is actually the West Branch of the Susquehanna River, and its headwaters here. When we arrived there, they told me, I am not going in the stream, it's muddy and gross. I said, okay, you can sit on the bank, I'll bring you some insects from the stream to look at. I said, we're not touching bugs. I said, okay, we're all gonna go have fun. And we piled into the river and all the kids started having fun. Just about the time I thought these girls were gonna sit on the bank for the entire field trip, I turned around and they had picked up one of the nets I had sitting there. They had climbed into the water and they started kicking for bugs. So I let them go and I figured they were just gonna go have some fun in the stream when I heard a shrill screech, basically, from these girls. And where we were, I figured they had caught a crayfish and probably had pinched one of them. But I turned around to see them holding out their hand, and the one girl has on her fingertip a tiny mayfly nymph. And they were excited to find a mayfly nymph. Now the really amazing part was they correctly identified the mayfly nymph. They said it has 3 tails, so it's a mayfly nymph. And the next words were important. The girl turned to me and said, "I thought the river was dead here. I didn't think things lived here. But there's a mayfly nymph. I guess things do." And I will be honest, this field trip took place 2 years ago. Those girls cannot identify a mayfly any longer, I can almost guarantee you. But they do know the river is alive there, and they remember the fun they had in the river that day. So now they are more interested in learning about macroinvertebrates and fish and all of these things in the river because they had that fun experience in the water. And I'd argue that that is actually the goal of any education event. Not that your students or your child that you take fishing can remember what fish they caught or can remember the name of the macroinvertebrates that you find, but rather that they have fun. So whenever you take a kid fishing, or if you're doing a youth education event, any of these things, try and remember that the facts and figures, yeah, you're going to teach them, but ultimately, if the kid has fun, it was a success. So what do we do? Well, our office has educated about 5,500 people in the last 4 years. And we've done this through a variety of means. We do symposiums that are more targeted towards adults, but we also do a lot of youth education programs. We've developed a curriculum to use in schools, and we also are going to be hosting a summer camp. So our youth education programs sort of combine a variety of things. They provide hands-on classroom education. We go into schools, we do water testing, we look at macroinvertebrates, but we also plan field trips. And these really are where the kids get to be involved in the learning process. They get to go out to a stream and see what we've learned about in the classroom. I like to include multiple partners in these so that the kids aren't just hearing from me talk, first of all, but also that they see a variety of different careers and volunteer opportunities. In this picture here, the person talking is actually a county governmental employee that came along and talked about a project that he had. And I want the kids to understand that they can work in a county government, they could work for a nonprofit, they could work for the Fish and Boat Commission, or they could volunteer. I tell people, if you want to be a doctor, go be a doctor, but in your free time, you can still volunteer. You can be a TU member. Those are the sort of things that you can still be involved in. If you are going out with a kid to take them fishing, you can, and your child is very involved, very excited about fishing, and maybe you're thinking that this is a career they're going to look into. A lot of places, if you call and say, I have a kid that's interested in fishing, and they maybe want to be involved in the conservation field, I know if you call our office, we'll find a field day that they can tag along, especially if you're willing to come and join us. County governmental groups, some of them might be willing to. So contact local people, contact your local volunteer group, contact your TU chapter, your watershed association. I'm sure they have projects that kids can come tag along on. So just get out there and talk to different people. It's always good for kids to hear it from multiple people. So we have developed an AMD curriculum, and if anyone's interested in seeing this, I do have some copies, some electronic copies and stuff of this curriculum, and it focuses on AMD, its formations, impacts, and treatment. And they can be used by teachers, volunteer groups, anyone to educate youth and even adults. But I would encourage you guys, if AMD is not your source of pollution, you know, down here you guys don't have AMD, but if you are looking to have, you know, you have that child that really enjoys fishing, but you want to take it to the next level. You don't want to just take them fishing, you want them to learn about conservation. Go on the internet. There are so many lesson plans and curriculums out there that you can use. You don't have to think of all of these ideas yourself. Go on the internet, look for your pollution source, and look for curriculums, and I'm sure someone has some lessons developed for it. So we are hosting a youth camp this year. It's a 5-day interactive camp. It will be called the River Researchers Teen Camp. It's to targeted at ages 14 through 17. And it's really going to teach about biology and fisheries, but along with that factual knowledge is the stewardship and fishing aspect. The camp is being held right along the west branch of the Susquehanna River, so the kids will be in the river every day. They will be fishing every day. So not only are we giving them the factual knowledge, we're giving them that tie to the water. And so it's going to be held August 4th through the 8th of this year. And it's really, really designed to allow kids to direct the learning. They are going to have hands-on activities. They will be completing their own stream assessment. They will be driving the learning process here. And they will be able to explore careers in this field. So we're targeting kids that are already fishermen maybe, and are already interested in this, to really give them the experience of what it's like to have our job, what it's like to be in the conservation field. So if you want more information, you can see me afterwards, or there is a website, the wbsrc.org, and on the right-hand bar there's a little link called Teen Camp. So if you want to find the information there. So a little bit about our chapters. You've heard a little bit about some of the great work our chapters do in terms of restoration work, but I have stated that there's over 400, or there are 400 chapters in the United States. PA chapters and the PA Council of Trout Unlimited provide a lot of educational experiences as well. They provide fishing classes where they will teach kids how to fish. They're great classes, and a lot of the times tied into that is an ecology class as well, where they'll talk about stream ecology, things like that. They also offer there is a conservation camp, another similar camp to what we will be teaching, the Yellow Breeches Camp, and I'm sure the Cumberland Valley TU chapter has information on that. And they also take part in a program called Trout in the Classroom, which is a partnership with the Fish and Boat Commission. And this program allows youth in classrooms to raise trout from eggs to fingerlings and release them. So this picture is of a classroom from State College releasing about 220 trout that day we released into a stream. And on this particular trip, one of the kids actually asked me if he could bring his fishing rod and use it during lunch. And of course I encouraged that. So not only do these kids get to come out and release fish and enjoy that, but we give them a fun day out in the field. We went and ate lunch at a really nice little park where some of the kids got to fish as well. So that's a little bit about what our TU chapters do. If you wanted more information on this, I would recommend that you go to the PA Council of Trout Unlimited's website, and they have a lot of information about the work that our chapters do out there. So the final thing that I want to really talk to you guys about is this mantra in TU that is, take care of the fish and the fishing will take care of itself. So we talk all the time about how it's not just about, you know, the individual habitat projects or the streams that we clean up, but it's this whole idea of how fishing and conservation tie together. And I'll give you a personal story of probably the reason why I'm standing here today. And that was my parents. They instilled in myself and my brothers and sisters a love of nature that is amazing. And my dad used to bundle us up. We were the crazy fishermen that didn't wait until April. We went in the middle of winter sometimes to go trout fishing in a little stream called Swift Run, which is, if anyone is familiar with tall timbers, which is an old growth hickory or hemlock forest, Swift Run runs through that. And my dad used to bundle us up in what felt like the middle of winter to me. And it always felt about 2 in the morning when he'd wake us up to go fishing. And he'd put us in the truck and drive us up there. And I will tell you that when I was a little kid, I wasn't so happy about waking up early in the morning to go out into the cold and fish. But every time I went fishing, I had a good time. And I enjoyed fishing. There was a stream in our backyard that I got to play in every day if I wanted to. And my parents encouraged it. I'd come in muddy and they didn't care. And that is really what made me love nature. I was allowed to play in it. And now, today, after going through college and everything, I've come back to work for Trout Unlimited. And so I want you to think about the kids in your life, and that by taking them fishing, there's the potential that they will be standing here saying, I work for Trout Unlimited, or the Fish and Boat Commission, or DEP, or any of these other great conservation groups in Pennsylvania. And so I really want you guys to think about that, and think about this idea of it's our job to take care of the fish. And one of the great ways to do that is to take a kid fishing, or to buy your child a TU membership. There are youth TU memberships that offer to them what is called a Stream Explorer. It's a specialized newsletter just for youth, and there's some online resources, things like that, that they get to have. And when they're a little bit older, when they're teenagers, they get the same benefits as a regular TU member gets. They get the newsletter that everyone else gets. So it's a great investment in your child and your child's future as a conservationist. So I would encourage you to do that. If you are not a member of TU, please visit tu.org and learn more about what we do. I think it's a great program, and as Rod can attest, all the chapters do great work. Work like this is what TU does. And so I really would like to leave you with that, and that idea of just, you know, get out there and take your kid fishing, have them enjoy a stream, and just like Carl said, even if they don't catch any fish, I'm sure they will have a good day, and that's what matters. So I'd like to say thank you to everyone here and to Fish and Boat Commission for all your help in planning this. And does anybody have any questions for me?
How old does a youth have to be to participate in your program?
Our programs are directed at any age. I do programs for kids below kindergarten, where we just, generally at that age, we're just looking at macroinvertebrates. We aren't going to be too involved in looking at where fish are living or habitat structures or anything like that. But we do programs for youth, for very young youth. Stream Explorer, the TU memberships, I am not sure, but I don't think there's a lower age limit on that. I think that you can get that for a child at any age. And they'll get, I mean, it is targeted to maybe like 6 and up, I would say, is what the Stream Explorers would be targeted as an age group.
How many students are you taking to teen camps?
This year we're going to be targeting 20 students. And we're really pushing that we try and get 10 girls and 10 boys, because I'd like to see the girls out there represented as well. As Carl said, you know, at that critical age of 13 or 14 is where the girls sort of start to drop off, and I'd really like to encourage them to come. So it is for 14 to 17, so we're right in that age where girls maybe don't want to be coming out to a camp to go fishing.
Any other questions for Rebecca? Okay, thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Okay, we're almost there. Before I let you go, I want to thank you again for coming out. I would also want to ask you to spend some time, if you haven't, visiting with some of the organizations that are out there. We're really honored to have an amazing watercolor artist, Tom Glace, here this evening. Tom's working on a brook trout print right now. So you get a chance to see him at work, and he's got some amazing, amazing pieces available. Again, I want to thank you for coming out this evening. I appreciate your patience, and hopefully you have a safe trip home, and we look forward to seeing you out on the water. Thank you.